So in that case, a lot of people are looking at this and going, it's just a bad deal for me. Of course, for the studio, it's a fantastic deal. And if they've worked out some kind of revenue share, that would be even better. But then they're not making the savings that they would on that AI. So it's kind of a big point of contention here of, well, why would I use AI if it's not saving me the job and saving me paying someone to do the job?
It could save you time. The cost savings could just be bundled in that, oh, it didn't take us 7 years to produce this game.
Yeah.
It took us 3 years. And one of the things we've seen within game development, and especially with all the recent leaks, is that the cost it's more second law. It's that, yes, technology is getting better and faster, but the cost to get that power, the cost to grow that is doubling, and so for like going from the current, generation to the next generation is like, there's a real active like cost, and we've seen games get smaller, but then we're seeing things like Light No Fire developed by a 12-person team that when it comes down to it, you're building a game, I'm building a game right now, like the ability to keep it kind of like in a group of like, here's the team,
a small lean team.
We don't have to go and have, because like the bigger the team, people are like, oh my gosh, Microsoft's spending $500 million on Halo 5. Like the bigger the team, the bigger the problems, the bigger the challenges.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, the best way to look at it is imagine that you're doing like a school project or something in a group of 4. How much chaos is that to organize? Imagine timesing that by 10 with the same level of organization, or even worse. It's an absolute mess. You're right. Bigger doesn't mean better in team size at all.
Yeah.
No, I'm not a game developer, nor have I stepped into game development ever, really. But I know that the earlier builds kind of use you don't always have textures, or you'll have rough textures made for the earliest build so that you can showcase your idea of the game before it's playable. I feel like that's the best implementation of AI, is when you're doing something like that, so you can sell the product to the company that you want to make, because you can use rather than having developers and artists work on something that's the huge chance all that art's getting scrapped. That art is not going to be probably used in the final product. That is probably, in my opinion, the best time to use AI is to showcase your product you want to sell to the company to make, and then have the artist work on the actual retail if it gets greenlit.
Yeah, no, because, that's exactly that's what I would agree with that. I mean, that's what I'm doing on the project I'm working on right now. So it's currently me and another guy, Andy. He's the artist. I'm programming, and my developer art, let's say, isn't the best. So for like abilities that I'm adding in, I just want a quick, dirty icon that I can throw in, and I know what the icon means. It's different from the rest. So again, you just go to AI and you're like, generate me a firestorm icon. And sure, it's going to be incoherent with the rest of the icons, but it works, right? It serves its purpose until it's replaced.
That's where I think it has a huge advantage. Is so when to get back to the core of this is like, when does it go into games? Hopefully immediately. The question is like, how does it not get used recklessly? And that's been every major technological advance has had this exact same issue. It's going to put a lot of people out of work. There's going to be a lot of people that get hurt along the way. And that's not the dream. We want to keep that number as small as possible, but hopefully with time, as these contracts start to get better negotiated, you may see some sort of group that's like, hey, I'm an AI artist, voice artist, and I have 500 libraries that can be used. And these libraries are being licensed out on 200 games.
Yeah.
And so you have a voice artist who has spent time generating this library and can now license it out to, your game. Probably, if it's just you and a friend, or you and somebody else that you've met through the industry, you probably can't afford to pay 30 voice artists to work on your game. But if there was libraries of voice artists, all of a sudden we could have voice acting in even kind of indie dev. And that would be a real perk.
Oh, absolutely.
So as a person that has a few, I will say, as a person that has a few voice actor friends, I'm just going to throw in, make sure you pay your voice actors properly. I'm just going to say that.
Right. That library would need to be paid. That library would need to be compensated. But that's the sort of thing that could pop up that would be to an advantage.
The Brian AI crash and he's back.
But when you look at like Final Fantasy 14, a game that, many of the people here have played, their cutscenes, they have talked about in panels how hard it is to get the voice acting into the cutscenes during production, because they have to record those so far in advance of the patch to have them voice acted in all the languages and have that so that it can all be animated correctly. And that means there are scenes that they were going to voice act that they may have to cut because the writing has to be adjusted, because they don't have time to go back out and get in with the voice actor. It's not an issue if they don't want to pay the voice actor. It's not an issue if they don't want to credit the voice actor. It's just not possible within just the logistics. And that's where tools like this, I think, would have a real advantage. Ideally, that voice actor would still be paid for that. And that's where you start to get a lot of these strikes and unions and things like that stepping up and hopefully protecting and saying, you know, okay, they're going to generate this many lines for you from their own vocal cords, and then you're going to be using the agreed upon tool to do the rest. And then they are going to be paid for, you know, maybe a heavier fee for what they actually generated and a smaller fee for everything that did go into the game, because without them, it wouldn't exist. And like, I don't know, legally, that seems really hard to do.
Now, before apparently my internet cut out, I was like, I don't know what happened. I was like, all right, I'm glad that you guys
welcome back, Brian.ai.
Thank you. Yeah, well, that's what I was like. We're talking about AI, and they're like, let's cut him. He's got to go. We have a chat here from Ouroboros Cat says, will we finally get a new MMO with AI, a good new MMO, excuse me, with AI? What do you guys think?
Yes, it won't be the first one.
Yeah.
No, the first one's going to be horrible.
Yes. Yes.
But probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Eventually, I would imagine so. Yeah. I mean, what you've got to see is the amount of people who've never made an MMO, they're going to jump into making an MMO because they think they now can because of AI. Those are going to be the first ones you see. They're going to be awful. There's no ifs or buts about that. Again, AI slop. That's all it's going to be. For the first ones, at least.
All right. So I think yes, the answer, but I don't know. Like sometimes when it comes to these things, the first one could end up being a pioneer in which that it takes, you know, people when we see with MMOs, like why would I leave this game and go to this other new game when I'm having, you know, a good time here? That's actually the same problem with the games as a service model is that yes, there's a handful of games as a service games that just dominate. And then everything else just kind of struggles because you're not going to be able to catch up on years and years of, you know, content and service and also the player base and the player numbers. I mean, we see this time and time again also with social media and those companies as well.
Speaking of social media.
Yeah, speaking of
as a small plug here, this show is currently live on every platform we can take it to. So you can see us on YouTube, Twitch, or on Twitter. X, what are we calling it?
X, Twitter. I always say I use both at the same, you know, interchangeably at the same time. So that is what it is. Now I gotta we want to talk about RuneScape and RuneScape 3, old school RuneScape and RuneScape 3. This week, some interesting news, and I'm very curious, Callum, like what's going on with RuneScape?
So for a while now, for quite a few years, people have been saying that, you know, RuneScape 3 in particular is dying.